Kentucky has one of the most well-respected and unique craft traditions in the nation, and I think it's partially because of this early settlement of the state by the pioneers who came here, especially through the mountains of eastern Kentucky, and settled and became a very indigenous group of folks who exchanged their traditions and built on those traditions in a fairly sheltered environment. So we have a very rich, varied tradition that has a historical context.
All handwork has dignity. There's a creative process going on there, and there's an energy that's really important to the culture.
As far back as I can remember, my father gave me a pocket knife when I was a little bitty girl, and I began to whittle then because I didn't like dolls and girl toys to play with, but I loved the pocket knife. My studio was a hatchet and a pocket knife, and I had no bandsaw or nothing like that to work with. In the beginning, it was all about making money and selling stuff, and now I have been involved in it so many years that I can't imagine life without being able to do it. So I don't look forward to the day when I can't do it.
I'm Walter. My grandfather was Walter. It goes back to my great-great-grandfather who was in the pottery business here in the old log building that you have at the far end. That's where they started. It's very old. My grandfather used the date 1809. My father used the date 1845. He had paperwork to prove that. Each generation added different colors, different shapes, different ideas of how to make pottery and everything. The boys are far better. This pottery is far better than even I made for years. I was improving it along, but they stepped it up. They've done a wonderful job with it.
Mama made good baskets, good stout baskets. You know, back then the colors was brown and orange. Striped them with brown and orange. We'd work at them in the morning until time to get dinner, and then we'd take out in time to get dinner. And then after dinner, we'd go back at it.
Why is white oak so good for making baskets?
Because it's a better wood, it lasts longer. When that dries out, you can't whittle it. Your knife will just slip over it, just like glassy looking, you know. Yeah, I'd be glad to teach anybody if they'd try to learn. The main thing is if they can whittle. There's so many people can't whittle.
How do you learn how to whittle?
Huh?
How do you learn how to whittle?
Well, you just take a knife and start whittling.
This is one of the finest baskets I've ever seen, this basket right here. This is one of Leona's baskets. It's a lidded picnic basket. That is a fabulous basket. You don't find any better split oak baskets. This is when she was put in the Smithsonian. Charlie Williams, a lawyer here in town, he and I both supported our county fair. He said, you know, we ought to have a basket contest over at the fair. People had put baskets in our floral hall. You put crafts in your county fair. And people had put baskets in all along. But it was Charlie's idea. We ought to do more than just have a few baskets in the handiwork division over there. We ought to have an actual basket show, a basket contest. Jimmy, I think it'd be a good thing. And I said, I think so too, Charlie. So that's what started. And then, as I said, I was also interested because I'd always loved the Hart County baskets. I've got them when I was a child, my marbles. I had a basket when I was 5 years old playing marbles. I carried my marbles around in a little Hart County basket. My mother had a Hart County basket she kept her clothespin in out there on the clothesline, hanging clothes to dry out. So I always had loved Hart County baskets and had always recognized them. And I thought, what a great chance to try to draw some attention to our baskets. And then, of course, the issue about getting people to take pride in themselves.
Do your patients like coming in here and seeing baskets?
They love coming in here and seeing them, and they take a lot of pride in it. And a lot of them come in and got family up there, and they love to point out so-and-so's basket, Granny's basket, or Mama's basket, or Uncle so-and-so's basket. Yeah. And they like seeing the quilts, too. And they like it. A lot of the older ladies, I had a 98-year-old lady in here the other day, still making quilts, talking about some of these quilts in here. She all got it. I couldn't get her, couldn't fit it, taken care of her because she wanted to talk about quilts.
Churchill Weavers was started in 1922 by Mr. and Mrs. D.C. Churchill. The Churchills were missionaries from India. He was an MIT graduate in engineering. And Mrs. Churchill was a Wesleyan graduate in German and English, but they met in India as missionaries, 1910. So when he came back, he said, Eleanor, there is no place in the county for people to work except Berea College. Why don't we start a weaving business? So in 1922, they started Churchill Weavers. And they employed people to make the looms, men to make the looms. They used natural materials, southern yellow pine and hard rock maple and poplar to make the looms, to make the equipment. And Mrs. Churchill designed the fabric, and that's how Churchill Weavers started.
Well, I got a call one day from Mrs. Churchill, and she asked me to come talk to her. I went into her office and she offered me the job as designer at Churchill Weavers. And I was very flattered. I told her I didn't know anything about weaving. And she said, well, you can learn, can't you? I decided not to take the job. When I went in to tell her that I was not going to take the job, she said, well, if you won't come work for me, she said, do you and Dick want to buy the business? I just about fell over because I had not ever entertained such a notion. So we took a long time trying to decide. We talked with her. She gave us an option on it. It took us about 6 weeks to make the decision to do it because it was a very frightening thing. I quit my teaching job and I worked there for a year or two without any pay. And learned. We did a lot of shows, we traveled, we opened new markets. We became cutting edge with our fabrics at Churchill Weavers as far as designs. At one point we got up to 92 or 3 employees. When Churchill Weavers closed, we had to downsize because sales were dropping, and because of the Chinese, Asian imports, and they were copying our designs, and the market was flooded. There's such a thing as a category killer, and when you have you put something out that competes with an original product, you put it out and you put it everywhere at $9.99. Say, quote unquote, it becomes a category killer. And it's not as a desirable a product anymore. So that happened with our throws. But and so we closed in 2007.
A handmade craft object that is unique somehow has to be different than what you can find on the market. Or it shouldn't be able to be replicated as easily as you can find on the market. This is one of the reasons why I mentioned earlier that I, in my own work, push innovation. Because I don't want necessarily to have my work follow the mainstream tradition history of art making as much as it's moving forward into the future, creating a whole new mainstream and a whole new tradition. I think that the Chinese market, which is creating very wonderful traditional objects, rugs, baskets, silk scarves, or whatever, you can tell the difference in those characteristics of those objects because they're replications of what trends are all about. And if you get into trends, then the whole marketplace has its purpose for that kind of quality and aesthetic. But if you move into the uniqueness of one-of-a-kind objects, well then that marketplace does all of a sudden become a little bit more exclusive, because more people with more money can spend on the higher price or higher price point object.
I turn wooden vessels, hollow them out on a lathe, and then I completely encase the vessel with a beaded skin. So I guess I'm a vessel maker. There are special wood turning tools that are called hollowing tools. So when the chunk of wood is solid on the lathe, it's turning around, and you're drilling a hole directly to the bottom and then slowly scraping out all the insides of the wood until you have a hollow form.
I guess your husband does a lot of woodwork as well?
Yeah, Jack does all of the large vessels for me. This is one that Jack turned on his lathe. I have a small lathe and I turn all the smaller vessels on my little lathe. Sometimes we work together and Jack will turn a vessel that I will add beadwork to, and sometimes he adds woodwork to my vessels, so maybe he'll do a lid or a base or something for one of my vessels. So we collaborate a lot. I do attach my first row of beads to a piece of leather, so that provides a place to begin.
So you have the leather is part of the work?
Yeah, it provides a foundation to stitch my first row of beads to. Sometimes we're working on a new design now that I've eliminated the leather, and I simply do a circle of beads, so it's just nylon thread and a circle of beads, and then with my needle I'll continue to build bead upon bead, and it hugs the vessel, so it's like a skin that is created over the surface of the vessel. So it hugs it. I like to say it fits like a glove. So there's no need to glue it. It's really a custom fit. One bead at a time, I'm creating this structure that will perfectly cover this vessel. So it just floats over the surface. There's no glue necessary.
In '65, I bought a new Gibson banjo. I was playing with a band we was playing staff band at Bean Blossom. And I met a guy over there that lived in Indianapolis that told me he could take it and make it sound better. And when I got it back, I tore it apart to see what he had done to it. And so then I got better acquainted with him. And at that time, he was doing work for Earl Scruggs and J.D. and some people like that. And through him, I met Ralph and met Earl and met J.D. and a lot of the top banjo players. And then I started doing the necks like he was doing, and I would get most of the material from him and buy the fingerboard from him. It already inlaid, so I kept doing a little more and a little more of it till finally I got to start doing all of it. And in '75, I asked Ralph about building him a banjo, and Ralph Stanley. And so I built him one, and he called me a couple of months later and said, if you'll build these, he said, we call them the Stanley Tones, he said, I'll sell them. And I started doing them in '75, and then within a couple of years, I was working second shift in a factory, so he was selling so many that I couldn't keep them built, and I moved back down here in Kentucky and started doing it full time in March of '80. We've done banjos for Raymond Fairchild, we've done them for Sonny Osborne, Ralph Stanley, and we've done a few for J.D., and then we do a little Roy Lewis banjo, and it keeps us busy, keeps the two of us busy.
Two of us, your son?
My son and myself, yes.
And how did he get started in it?
Whenever he was small, he was real small whenever I bought the first banjo.
What's his name again?
Ricky. And he grew up with it. And then he wanted to try his luck at something else, so he went and worked in Tennessee for a while and come back here and worked for a while, and then he decided to do this. And he's been with me now about 15 years. Then I started him cutting the inlay, and he likes doing that, and he cuts all the inlay work, does all that, and does most of the finishing work.
This is a Frank Neat.
Yeah, it's just a one we built up special. It's just a special one. This is the only one we've done like this.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's got the gold mother of pearl in it instead of the white, and then it's got some abalone pearl in it. And then we even put the gold, you can get any more, you can get gold frets, and we put the gold fret in this.
You can't get them anymore?
You can get them, yeah.
Oh,
you can get them, yeah. They're harder to work with. But we put those in this one. We built this one up special because, we just wanted to do something that nobody else had done, and that's what we did. The way that all of it is fit together, and then this inlay work, I think it takes an artist to do this inlay. It, like that is up there with her name on it and all that, you see.
Yeah.
I think that's an art to that. And when you do it by hand, and that's the way that Ricky does it, he cuts it all by hand. Back whenever I first started doing them, it made you feel good when you seen somebody on the Opry playing one of yours or something like that. But it's something you get used to. And
could you see it on TV, the word neat?
You could see them, yeah, I've seen them like that. And then I've even had I've had people to mention on the Opry that they were playing one of mine.
I work in mixed media with wood, metal, and glass. It's that simple. And I'll talk about the fact that it's 3D, that I do fused work, that I mix the different materials together. It's a hard road, I'll tell you, to go down, and you're going to have all the different elements. You're going to have to figure out how to be the businessman and how to be the persistent person and how to be the creative person and deal with all the different aspects of being an artist. It takes a lot of drive, but I would say if you love it, do it, because it's been very fulfilling for me.
The more technical we get, the more electronically we get, the more that we have to have those things that are made by human beings around us to maintain our humanity.